Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I've got an interesting one for you guys from Japan. This is part of the Fender International Color series of guitars. Now you might think, hey, doesn't that sound familiar? Yes, it is. This is a limited edition run that was initially did around 1981 for Fender, where they did a whole bunch of interesting international flavors. However, just very recently, in 2022, Fender Japan decided, hey, let's bring all the colors back except for one. So let's go ahead and get this thing unboxed so we can talk a little bit more about it. As is typical with most Japan exclusive guitars, you get a gig bag brand new. Let's go ahead and see which one I got, because they did Stratocasters, jazz basses, P basses, Telecasters. You guys know whenever I have the option of one of them, I'm always going to get the Telecaster. I think the reason why I prefer Telecasters is generally they don't have any type of trem systems on them, and they're the most similar to Les Pauls that I like within the Gibson territory. But here I decided to go with the Maui Blue Telecaster just because it's such a cool, beautiful finish, and it's just a nice Telecaster in general. But first impressions here, this is just such a beautiful, striking baby blue finish. They call it Maui Blue, but this thing is so nice and glossy. But this thing is definitely like 80s inspired. We actually have our serial number on the headstock decal here. And then you have things like the Fender F-stamp tuners, but oh my goodness, is that what I think it is? I won the wood grain lottery, my friends. A flamed neck on a guitar that's not supposed to be flamed. That is not a spec. This is just an abnormally awesome beast. I love it. It's just nice to have a full gloss Telecaster. I know the satin finishes, they feel nice to play. But to be honest, I'm not really all that knowledgeable on 80s Telecasters. I know a bit more about like 70s and 80s Stratocasters. But let's learn a little bit more about the International Colors run. Alright, so the original International run was done up with 7 colors. You had Artic White, Morroco Red, Maui Blue, Monaco Yellow, Capri Orange, Sahara Taupe, and Cathay Ebony. So each of those names have an international flair to them. When I first heard International Color Series, I thought that meant it was only available internationally. No, they're just trying to pay tribute to so many places, from the freezing Arctic down to the beautiful blue Maui. So Fender has reissued most of the colors in the Stratocaster format, the Telecaster, and of course you get the 2 different bases with limited finish options. The jazz bass coming in Monaco Yellow, Maui Blue, and Sienna Sunburst, whereas the P bass only comes in the red and Sunburst. The Telecasters are available in that Sunburst, the blue, the yellow, and the red in varying fretboards. Then the Stratocaster, we have Capri Orange, Morroco Red, the Maui Blue, Sahara Taupe, and Monaco Yellow. Now what's kind of interesting about the original Stratocaster Sahara Taupe finish is it's rumored that the original ones were made using leftover 25th anniversary Stratocaster bodies, because most of the vintage ones have 4-bolt necks. However, unfortunately, it does not look like Fender paid tribute to that on their reissue here, because the Stratocasters, they have all the 70 specs. Micro tilt, 3-bolt neck, Fender F-stamp tuners, giant headstock with the bullet truss rod. Basically, if you don't care about the fancy colors, it's just an interesting made in Japan reissue of like 70s and 80s specs. I especially love the jazz basses with their block inlays here. But the Stratocaster, Telecaster, and Precision bass all cost 123,750 yen, whereas the jazz bass is a little bit more expensive. To learn more about this blue Tele, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. I'm starting to regret not getting the Stratocaster, because after looking at all the different colors and knowing that that one gets the most. So if anybody's interested in a new Guitar Dang international forwarding service, one of those things, I'll go ahead and do that review as well. But as far as the Telecaster goes, essentially what they did is they took one of the made in Japan traditional Telecasters, ported it over here, made a few era correct changes to it, plopped a few fancy colors on it, and they're charging you basically 200 USD more, from 104,000 yen to about 124,000 yen. But let's go ahead and start with our pickups here. They're nothing too special. They just call them the vintage single coil Telecaster pickups. So your neck pickup looks like that. And then the bridge, if you lift it up, looks very similar with a steel base plate. And as far as the routes, yeah, you're not going to modify this to be a Nashville Tele, because all that's under that pickguard is a single coil route, and that's also how you adjust your truss rod. It's located at the bottom of the heel. As far as specs go, it is a basswood body, but it's pretty well covered over everywhere here with the paint, but we can still see it where like the screws go into the body. Within the circuit are bridge reed 6.25K ohms with a neck of 5.18 and together 2.86. Your controls are basic, master volume, master tone, no push-pulls or anything like that for series parallel. It's just very basic Telecaster stuff. But apparently another 70s 80s spec here is the bridge itself. You've got these steel saddles instead of the vintage brass style. And this one is done up string through style and has the Fender branding right there. So normally Fender Japan stuff, pretty darn good when it comes to the quality control, but uh-oh, what's this right here by the neck? There is a chip in the finish. I guess we're lucky the pickguard covers that. But the pickguard itself, it's called 3-ply eggshell. So you got eggshell, black eggshell. Here it is compared to like pure white. So you can see it's just slightly off-white, but it's a really nice complementing color, I think. Moving on from the basswood body, this particular one comes with a rosewood fretboard, but as we saw earlier, some of the finishes have maple fretboard options if that's what you prefer, but you have 21 medium jumbo frets. It's just your standard 25.5-inch scale length with a 9.5-inch fretboard radius. Basic dot inlays, as you're used to. And we have a bone nut measuring 1.63 inches, which increases to 2.02 by the 12th. The first fret neck depth measures 0.9 and increases to 0.94 by the 12th. It's advertised as a U-shaped neck. But I would say the best way to describe this neck, I know they describe it as a U-shape, but it's got a lot of shoulder to it, and then it just has a slightly flat spot back here. It's not completely flat. There's still a little bit of roundedness to it, but that's how it kind of feels. It's more so like a D-shaped neck, in my opinion. However, it's not flat on the back, like super skinny. This actually feels way chunkier than those numbers suggest. So I'm digging this neck profile. Here's what it looks like on the contour gauge. You can kind of see what I'm talking about with that flatness in the center. But since we have truss rod access at the heel, they just cap it off right there with what looks like a little bit of walnut wood. And then, yeah, I love the fact that the headstock is flamed on this one. Again, don't order one of these thinking yours is also going to have that. That's just, luck of the draw. They use whatever maple that they have in the stock, and this one just happened to be a little bit figured. But we've got a double string tree on this one, stock from the factory, and the 80s Fender logo up here. Made in Japan with our serial number right there. If you wonder why I block out Japan serial numbers, it's because the dealer asks me to. But these tuners are the poke it down, wrap it around kind, not the incognito locking ones that I'm not a big fan of. Moving on to the back, not too much to talk about here. You can see your string through ferrules and your 4-bolt neck on this one. Again, the strats were a little bit different, but you don't have any comfort carves or anything. It's just a basic Telecaster as far as being big and blocky. But that's why we like Telecasters. But you can't see the cool barrel style output jack and the strap buttons in your usual locations. Now, the only downside to this awesomely flamed neck is the fact that when you play it is the very mildly figured side until you kind of get up here. So that's a bit of a bummer, but when you turn it around and look at it, it's quite the interesting sight here. Then we've got our F-stamp tuners back here with nothing else. And the weight of this one is just under 8 pounds. So let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. All said and done, International Colors Edition Telecaster. What are my final thoughts on this thing? I really liked it. Like, I wasn't necessarily expecting too much out of this because, you know, it's just a limited edition run with some interesting colors. That's a port of a different model that they already had out there. But I was actively surprised at just how nice these pickups actually sounded at this price point. Now, it's kind of hard for me to suggest one of these to somebody to buy because we can talk how much they cost over in Japan, but to import one back, you have additional fees and taxes and a whole bunch of other mess, which I can definitely help you with if you need to. You can check out my international forwarding service on my website, but, you know, at that point, you're spending a bit of a premium to get one of these limited editions. So you kind of lose some of the, oh yeah, this is a great guitar because it's only like $1,000, but you know, it gets a little bit more expensive than that. But I had a great time with this thing. So if you can get one, or if you're native to Japan, because this is an international audience that we have here, check it out. I had a fantastic time with this one, and you know, the whole flame neck, that's just an added bonus. Comments about QC? We talked about the chip finish in there, and straight out of the box, this setup was absolute trash, so you're probably going to have to set one of these things up, which is reasonable considering it came from Japan to the USA. But after a little bit of dialing in, I was plenty happy with this. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. But quick, let's play color changing. All right, take care.